All right. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Alex Keene. I'm Associate Principal at Keene Independent Research, and we were hired by the city of Celina to conduct and create an arts and cultural master plan. So we've been kind of going through the process over the last 6 months or so, learning a lot about Celina and its culture and history, and it's kind of led into this. I think it's hopefully a well-received document. So we're still in the draft process. We'll talk about how you can submit public comments and feedback in a little bit, but appreciate you all being here today. So just kind of an overview of the presentation. We'll talk about the purpose of this discussion, how we got here, the goals of the Arts and Culture Master Plan, community engagement efforts, the stakeholder and community perspectives, and some of our key recommendations. So first, a little bit about us. Keene Independent Research is a national arts, culture, equity, and economic consulting firm. We have a team of 25 experts in many different fields, including arts and culture. We also have economists, sociologists, and other practitioners that really inform our work. We've done a lot of work in Texas. We did the Arts and Culture Master Plan for the city of San Marcos. We've done work in Waco, lots of different projects in the DFW area, including work for the city of Frisco, Louisville, and Irving. And we're also currently doing some arts and cultural master planning for the city of Golden, Colorado, the city of Jefferson City, Missouri, and we have national arts and culture projects all over the country. So the purpose of this conversation today, we're presenting the draft Arts and Culture Master Plan, and we're hoping to receive some feedback. Please, if you haven't reviewed the plan yet, it is available on our study website, which is keeneindependent.com/CelinaArts. You can view the draft plan there, and we kindly ask for feedback on the plan by the end of April. You can also scan the QR code that you see on your screen right now. We're also accepting public comment through the end of April to the study hotline, which you see listed, as well as the study email address. So please make sure that you take an opportunity to share your perspective on the draft plan before it goes in front of City Council in May. So let's talk a little bit about our methodology. We believe in robust in-person and virtual stakeholder and community engagement. So we've accomplished that through a series of public discussions, in-depth interviews, kind of talking to arts and cultural stakeholders in Celina, as well as city leadership, city council members, and really folks that understand kind of where Celina has come from and where Celina is going. We also conducted a literature review of existing city plans. We want any of our arts and cultural master plans to fit within the existing planning framework that the city has already conducted. We don't want to make recommendations that are counter to what Celina has already invested in its planning process. So you'll really see within the plan that we point to existing plans to help support what our recommendations are. We conducted benchmarking of comparable cities and funding tools for arts and culture. So we looked at other cities across the country and try to learn from them to help inform some of Celina's processes for supporting arts and culture. However, we also recognize that Celina is unique and it's not necessarily the same as anywhere else. So we can learn from other cities while also really reflecting the unique values and history and perspective of Celina and its residents. And we've conducted an analysis of demographic and population trends. Celina is growing rapidly. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's a really important part of our process. It's not just kind of arts and culture for the sake of arts and culture. It's really about how is the community growing and changing, and how can arts and culture be a part of that. So the goals of the plan are to integrate art and culture into existing and future city development, develop art and culture to celebrate Celina's history and the diversity of its residents, approach art and culture as a tool for gathering residents downtown and unifying Celina's neighborhoods, to cultivate a local art and cultural economy to enhance quality of life, generate creative jobs, and keep resident art and entertainment spending in Celina. And that last point is really important. We want to create an economy where dollars are being spent in Celina and not driving down the tollway to other cities within the DFW metro area. So a little bit more about our community engagement efforts. Our virtual workshop, which was kind of an online portal where folks could share their feedback and perspective, had over 700 participants. We conducted in-depth interviews with city leaders, artists, musicians, performers, and arts educators. Conducted a public town hall where you see this this image of folks kind of playing with a really cool map of the city. Conducted site visits and tours of relevant Celina arts and cultural infrastructure. We had a study website where folks could engage, as well as a study email address and telephone hotline. Again, those two are still available if you want to submit any final comments. And some of the things we heard from the stakeholders in the community of Celina, some common themes. So, Celina's residents are creative and have a strong desire for more arts and culture. We're really impressed by how kind of creative and enthusiastic Celina's residents are. There's a perceived geographic disconnect between downtown and Celina's neighborhoods. So we understand that, kind of each of these the developments that have been fostered in Celina almost have their own identities. People, when we heard when people say, where are you from? Sometimes they don't say I'm from Celina. They'll say the neighborhood that they're from in Celina, and even just how those different neighborhoods are laid out is very much about creating almost kind of mini town squares within the broader Celina framework. We heard that Celina is a city with a diverse history and diverse residents. It's it's a complicated history too. There's many different iterations of kind of who was in Celina and who has been in Celina, and so that's something that was really exciting to learn about. And we heard from your community that placemaking can unite Celina, activate its history, and celebrate the diversity of its residents. That's really the outcome of these conversations and what you have all have asked us to help foster and facilitate through arts and culture. So as part of the virtual workshop, we asked, I think, a really kind of fun question: what makes Celina unique? So some of the key responses. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that it's broken down by folks that are newer to Celina, less than 4 years of time living in Celina, and then folks that have lived in Celina more than 4 years. And one of the things we're looking at here is to kind of see, the folks that have been around a while, is there a difference of perspective versus some of the new residents of Celina? And in full agreement between both of those groups is that Celina is unique because of its small town feel, and we would certainly agree with that. I've personally spent a lot of time in Celina now, and it's a great town. It really feels like a small community, even though it's growing rapidly. People know each other, people care about each other, people treat each other really well. Community was another word that came up a lot in our kind of feedback in that area. Little bit of difference between the less than 4-year residents and the 4-year plus residents. And one of the things we did hear from some folks that are newer to Celina is it can be sometimes hard to kind of break into the community, right? So, folks have known each other for 20 years and you just got to Celina. How do you break in? And we really think that arts and culture is a really good tool for helping kind of foster those dialogues between folks that have been there a while and folks that are brand new. I think growth was interesting to hear. Celina is growing rapidly. We heard about your festivals and events. That was something that's been really highlighted by the community as a real positive, is all the amazing festivals that take place in Celina, and they being a real part of the cultural identity. We asked the question, would you like to see more art and culture in Celina? And over 72% of folks that participated in the virtual workshop said they agree or strongly agree with that statement. So there's support for arts and cultural investment. We kind of targeted that further and asked the question, would you like to see family-friendly art and culture events in Celina? And that was even more supported, with about 80% of folks agreeing or strongly agreeing with that statement. And then kind of the difference between family and children, right? So family is about bringing the entire family together, but what about specific programming for children and teens? This is something we hear a lot about in our work. Is there for kids to do in your community? And 77% of you say you agree or strongly agree that you'd like to see more programming for children and teens in Celina. And another question: I'm interested in attending performing arts shows and events. So, what's the kind of that support for the performing arts in Celina? And 75% of you said you agree or strongly agree with that statement. So there's definitely a kind of an interest and desire for performing arts in Celina. And then the question of, I'm interested in art and culture events that highlight local artists, performers, musicians, and makers. So this is really, do you want to see folks from outside come in, or do you want to see a focus on kind of your local arts and cultural community? And 80% of you said that you agree or strongly agree with that statement. That's really something that we agree with. You want to invest in your local, creative economy. It's a really important factor when doing, planning for the arts and cultural sector. And then we had some fun with maps. You saw that image earlier of folks kind of gathering around a map and showing where they think more investment for arts and culture should be. So the first thing that we did, this is kind of what we do for all of our arts and cultural master planning work, is we got to see what you have. What kind of assets and amenities do you already have in your community? And so we mapped that. You'll see this map is representative of many different arts and cultural amenities that are existing within Celina. And we are making some updates to this. We've got some feedback of just a couple more things that we're going to add before the final plan. But if you see anything that's missing, just let us know. Some of the kind of particularly kind of exciting amenities that already exist. We've heard really positive things about your high school auditorium and the types of shows that are put on there. The high school theater program is well received, and we heard about some of the great musicals that go on in that space. You kind of think about the town square and some of the murals and different types of public art that are already in place. That's something we've heard a lot about, and they're mapped on this. One of the things we think is an area of opportunity is we'd like to see more businesses associated with arts and culture. We did quite a bit of research to kind of see what businesses already exist within Celina that are part of the arts and culture sector. And I think it's an area of opportunity for growth and development. There's not a lot of businesses that call Celina home that are involved in the arts and culture sector. And we really want to invest in having more of a creative economy. So we'd like to see them on the map soon. And so when we worked with your community to help identify where new assets should go, this is directly reflective of the public coming around a map and saying, okay, where should we put some stuff? And we heard a lot about specifically welcome signage and sculpture as an area of opportunity. You all told us that it's important when you drive into Celina that you're in Celina, and we agree. Really that sense of place and setting the stage for folks to understand you're in Celina now. This is a great town, and we invest in our community, and you are now part of. You're now within our boundaries. We think that's a great idea, and we certainly have lots of recommendations for kind of the character and quality of what that might look like. We also heard about a desire to invest in performing arts infrastructure. What does a community theater look like in Celina? What about a place for a quartet to perform? And so you'll see that on the map. Folks were identifying different locations for where a performing arts center might be built. We heard about festival grounds, and we have a real broad definition of arts and culture within kind of our framework. And we really, festivals are great. Bringing people together to participate in festivals and events really helps build that cultural identity for communities. We heard about some opportunities for festival grounds. So these are just some examples of different places where folks were excited about investing. We also heard about your park and trail system and how sculpture and different types of public art amenities could be brought into your trail system. And we understand the trail system is really under development now and is going to be an area of strength for Celina in the future. Something that we uncovered, we talked about doing literature reviews. Well, we uncovered within your kind of parks and recreation planning that there's already a plan for having kind of gateways. And gateways are, in the case of kind of what's already been proposed, freestanding monuments that signify entry into Celina. So the great news is Celina is already ahead of the conversation when it comes to those kind of markers that identify that you've entered Celina. And so it was great to see that there's some existing planning efforts, but these existing planning efforts are hopefully informed by the additional kind of nuance and research that we've done in the arts and cultural master plan. So diving into key recommendations, you're going to see them broken into 5 categories. And if you're looking at the document, you'll kind of see that we've really organized them around kind of high level recommendations and then getting into some of the real specifics. So our first category is we recommend that Celina foster growth and development of arts and culture in the city, designate spaces and places for art and culture, develop placemaking concepts, utilize existing facilities for arts and culture, and use industry standard and inclusive language. And we'll get into what each of these means just a little bit more now. So our first recommendation, foster growth and development of art and culture in the city. So you'll see it kind of broken down into 3 sub recommendations. So the first one is to support local arts organizations, artists, musicians, performers, makers, and creatives. And the key word there is local. Lift up that local arts and cultural economy and really invest in it. We think that's a really key, important recommendation. And you'll see within the plan, we go even into further about kind of some of the where, what, and why surrounding that recommendation. We recommend that Celina help artists and art organizations find and acquire resources for their work. We suggested kind of a portal for grant making, kind of news and information on how artists and art organizations can help find funding and resources. And really importantly, we recommended that Celina amend the hotel occupancy tax and designate a portion for arts and culture. Celina doesn't have a lot of hotel infrastructure today, but Celina will likely have a lot of hotel infrastructure in the future as it continues to grow and develop. And this is a real area of opportunity for arts and cultural funding. And the city has been receptive to this recommendation so far. We recommend that Celina create a community foundation that includes arts and cultural fundraising. Many communities throughout Texas have kind of a foundation focused on supporting local community efforts. And oftentimes they help with housing and medicine and different types of supporting different types of infrastructure and programming. And they oftentimes support arts and culture. And we think that in order to bring in kind of arts and cultural grants and donors, it may become important to have a community foundation that can sort of serve as the pipeline. Certainly from a charitable giving standpoint, folks want to give to a 501c3 where they can write off their donations for tax purposes. They're less likely to give money directly to the city. And so we recommend that you kind of channel arts and cultural fundraising and support through some type of community foundation. We're recommending that Celina go through a process of conducting feasibility studies for building new and repurposed venues. So, one of the things that we often hear in our work is, we need a new performing arts center, or we need a new, kind of visual arts studio. And, it may be that Celina needs those things. But what is really important is that you go through a process for building those types of amenities, and feasibility studies are a really smart way to do that, because you kind of figure out what do you need, who are your key stakeholders, and how do we build something that's most effective for serving the community. We do not recommend that you kind of just dive right in and repurpose something without a clear process for identifying what it should be and how it should be constructed. And then from a staffing standpoint, we're recommending that Celina hire an arts coordinator, a dedicated staff line to help really implement this arts and cultural master plan, as well as work with the Arts and Culture Council, Arts and Cultural Commission that's city appointed. And really you need a full-time staff line to really focus on arts and culture within your community. We think this is an important step, and we know that the city's been receptive on that part as well. So getting into our second recommendation, designate spaces and places for arts and culture. So kind of a broad recommendation, but you'll see within our implementation plan that we'll discuss in a minute. We think downtown, is doing great, but it needs even more art and culture. And there's many different ways to bring that, both in kind of public art, but also in festivals and events and different types of activation. We really like the idea, and this was not our idea. This was kind of previous conversations that we were responding to, is to brand the entertainment district as a place for local artists and creative entrepreneurs. You have a developing entertainment district, really kind of double down and support that designation. incorporate art and culture into development of parks and trails. Parks and trails are great places for public art. It can be great places for what's kind of called kinetic art, really the art that you can play on, enjoy, exercise with. You see this in some of the best, greatest parks and trails in the country, where there's public art that's not just there to look at, but also to experience, and enjoy, and use. It's a really cool way to enhance your park and trail system. And kind of like we talked about in the mapping, we're recommending that Celina designate those entrance ways with art and culture, kind of that wayfinding and placemaking as a real opportunity. So I talked just briefly about the implementation plan on the previous slide, but you're going to see some depth and detail. So these are very kind of high level recommendations coming from the top, but we want to make sure that there's accountability. And so you'll see within the plan that there's implementation structure. Now, this takes it down one level, but we're very hopeful that the city staff, as well as the Arts and Cultural Commission, go even further, right? Look at these goals that we're recommending, and then fill in some of the blanks with detail for how you're going to get there. But you're going to see this all organized by the recommendation, who we think the lead agency is, who those potential partners are, when to start by, and then what the interim and stretch goals are. So, for example, let's look at the hotel occupancy tax recommendation. So we were making an amendment to this because we understand that there's an existing hotel occupancy tax. But basically, the interim goal is make sure that the hotel occupancy tax exists. And then the stretch goal, and this is where it's kind of broad because we want to have the Arts and Culture Board set more specifics, but hotel occupancy tax funds a significant portion of arts and cultural projects, right? It's a huge part of that investment. Another example, let's look at the enhanced downtown through art and culture. It's lead agency of strategic services, potential partners, Arts and Culture Board, start by 2025. And the kind of interim goal is install public art around the downtown square. We hope the Arts and Culture Board will still kind of identify how much and what's the quality and type of that public art. And then that stretch goal, and this is I think really kind of almost visionary in a way. The downtown area is a gathering place for art and culture at all times, regardless of time of day and week. It's not just that folks are coming downtown, just for a festival, but they're, you're sitting there on a Tuesday afternoon and you're enjoying the public art, and you enjoy the music in the square and all the things that make the downtown, really, really special. Getting into some more recommendations, develop placemaking concepts. So, one of the things that cannot go well when you're putting in public art is if you don't have a community engagement process. So we're very hopeful that the Arts and Culture Board, as well as kind of new staff lines, can help guide the public through discussion as new public art is being recommended. And kind of thinking about the history and how it might kind of breathe some connection to the past into placemaking. We've heard a lot about the agricultural history of Celina, and there's a real opportunity to bring that history into public art infrastructure. You can also celebrate the history of Longhorns in the area by marking the former Shawnee Trail. It's a really, really kind of exciting piece of Celina's past. And then, we've heard a lot about Roller Town and how Celina has a lot of grit because it had to move the whole town down the road. And there's some opportunity to do some placemaking through kind of a historical exploration of what does it mean to be a roller town, and kind of marking the where Celina came from versus where Celina is now. A few more placemaking concepts here. We want to see Celina not just focus in the downtown, but also go into the specific neighborhoods and put in kind of public art and different types of artistic enhancements that help kind of designate those neighborhoods as unique, but also connect them into the greater Celina fabric. We know that Celina cares a lot about its football team with the high school football team at Bobcat Stadium. And we think that's just a great venue. And we'd love to see arts and culture at that that venue at times and near that venue. So maybe opportunities for public art enhancement around the stadium. And we really think that through any type of placemaking, it's very important to celebrate Celina's history and growing diversity. So you'll see some kind of specific recommendations on that. But one of the things that's kind of a through line through all of the stakeholder engagement that we did is people are very connected to Celina's history, and folks have different opinions of what and perspectives about Celina's history because it's changed over the years. We've also heard a lot about Celina's growing diversity and the kind of the amazing groups of people that have made Celina and call Celina home. We want to make sure that everybody feels connected to Celina and kind of what makes Celina really special. And we talked about that the neighborhood unifying the neighborhoods through public art. Getting into our fourth recommendation, utilize existing facilities to support arts and culture. The new library has a lot of opportunity for having arts and cultural programming as well as installations throughout. We'd like to see art and culture be really featured in existing city facilities. So, for example, having kind of dedicated gallery space within existing facilities to show off local residents' artistic endeavors. Owsley Park has a real opportunity to have arts and culture as part of its design. And we've heard a little bit about some unused spaces within Celina, whether it's kind of open space or existing buildings. There's opportunities to maybe do adaptive reuse of kind of an old abandoned building and turn it into a visual art studio or something like that. It's always good to look at what you already have before you start building new. And then kind of finally, when we started this project, it was a fine arts master plan, and the board was the fine arts board. We think that's not inclusive because arts and culture is so expansive, and it's really important to not kind of just say, well, this is about fine arts and nothing else. And so this is already in process. The fine arts board is in the process of being renamed to the Arts and Culture Board. We've already made the change that this is an arts and cultural master plan and not a fine arts master plan. So again, back to the, kind of, it's important to have an implementation plan. How do you actually get this stuff done? And you'll see within the draft master plan examples of, those interim and stretch goals, and then giving the staff and board members opportunity to really further define some of the things that it'll take to meet some of these goals. So let's just kind of dive into next steps. So again, we ask you to please review and submit feedback or questions by the end of April. And we'll be incorporating feedback into the final plan. So, we're going to be taking your comments and seeing how they kind of fit, and what are some of your recommendations and tweaks that we can make, and we'll be making those changes when appropriate. And then I'll be back in Celina on May 9th to present the Arts and Culture Master Plan to City Council in a working session where they can ask questions and give their feedback and perspective, and then it'll be voted on in a council meeting to come. So just want to thank you all for your participation today. Again, please review the plan and provide feedback or questions by the end of April. You can visit the study website, kingindependent.com/CelinaArts to find the plan, or you can scan the QR code on this page. Feel free to call the hotline or email us with comments. Just want to thank you for your time. So have a great rest of your day, and take care. Thank you.